STACEY'S matrix explained by and for potatoes. Today, STACEY'S matrix is considered to be a tool that allows you to position yourself according to the level of complexity of a project. Used more to raise awareness than as a real tool, you need to navigate STACEY'S matrix and know how to get back to simplicity. It's not just a question of knowing where you stand, but also learning how to use a matrix to simplify and better manage projects. It's not just about looking at it, it's about looking at what you can do with it with a bigger picture in mind. Guillaume Degois, and welcome to Novanagement, the channel that plunges you into the heart of the issues of our humanity through the prism of management. Today, we are going to share with you the keys to understand the famous STACEY matrix and, above all, return to its origin, a tool to help us adapt as best as possible to our environment. Rest assured, today we will see it differently through another prism. I've been supporting companies in their transformation for 15 years, and I'm fascinated by the efficiency of a good management led by confident leaders. My method is to share that experience, as we will do together today. Let's start with its origin and definition. STACEY'S matrix is a tool used to shed light on decision-making for companies in complex situations. The matrix dates back to the 90s. It is 35 years old, so it's only natural that it has changed over time. Several interpretations have been made out of it over the years. I'll tell you why I find it valuable and how I use it. For example, this matrix is considered often viewed as static, but I'd like you to think of it as dynamic, often not analyzed without a so what. Here we are, without going any further. Whereas this matrix can be used to show the dynamic of a project. This is a concrete tool, a real decision-making aid. How can we find the main human and/or technical improvement path? By definition, STACEY'S matrix is a dynamic analysis tool, a vision model of a business, a project, or a situation. It helps us to define the context in which we will find our team and ourselves, simple, complicated, complex, or chaotic, and to make and take the good decisions. It is useful for all decision makers, whatever the size of the company, large, medium-sized, or small, and also for self-employed entrepreneurs and micro-businesses. There are several representations of it, but the essence is always the same. Let's go back to the origins. Let's start with the axis, the horizontal axis. At the origin, this axis represents the certainty that I personally interpret as being the technicality, the way of achieving it. Idest, the technical, factual, debatable resources. The further you go to the right, the more technical it is. Now the vertical axis. Originally, this axis represents the level of agreement, which I see it as the understanding of the project by the team. The higher we go, the less we agree on the team or teamwork, who does what. Then we have the different zones that make up our matrix. Simple. Here, we are in a zone where there is very little technicality and we know all the players involved, the whole team. Everything is clear and simple. To illustrate, let's take the example of a potato recipe. For example, preparing a recipe using a variety of potatoes that are known, sized, and intended for this recipe, like chips, mashed potatoes, boiled potatoes, etc. It is a simple task. If you follow the recipe, the result is replicable. Also, when you buy potatoes, to get the right cooking time, the recipe can be indicated on the packet, for example, 15 minutes. No complication. First, it's when we are getting more technical while still agreeing on the way forward. Or, secondly, we want to do something simple, but we don't know yet who's going to do it. We don't know our resources yet. This is where things start to get complicated on the vertical axis. Just imagine. If we still take the example of the potatoes, let's say I'm changing varieties. I need to find a new preparation, a new cooking time. I have to find a technical solution to simplify my problem. Or, if I change my guests, who like different recipes or presentations. I'll have to find a political solution for my preparation, getting everyone to agree. Now, complexity. When a solution needs technical skills, things get complex. This happens when you know what you want, but aren't sure how it will look or who to work with. It's more difficult, but manageable with the right methods. Let's go back to our potatoes. You choose, voluntarily or unintentionally, a new variety of potatoes that you are not familiar with for a particular type of preparation, fries or mashed or gratin. You're getting more technical. You don't know how long it will take to cook. You can solve the problem using two types of resources. You know a potato specialist or a team of specialists who can help. You move back to the complicated zone by agreeing with the team. The specialist will tell you you can run tests between, for example, 17 and 19 minutes. They make the process simpler by reducing the test range. You need to find the specialist first. Or, without experts, you test by yourself for, let's say, 15 to 30 minutes, testing every minute, for example. You increase the test range to find the right timing. Another example. Presenting the potatoes in a certain appealing way on the plate is an illustration of complexity. It can be complex because if you drop the plate, you won't be able to reproduce it identically. And another team won't present the plate in an identical way. But the expectation remains the same. A beautiful presented plate. The layout may vary, but the end result, a beautiful plate of potatoes, must be the same. It's the same at work. In a company, two teams can achieve the same objective in different ways. Now, the chaos zone. Chaos is when it's not clear what to do or with whom. There are too many uncertain and unrealistic parameters. In this zone, we are driven by fear. We give up and don't go for it. It's a no-go zone. In the face of chaos, the leader must use directive management. It's this way. In fact, I suggest that you take a look at the excellent Toguna capsule, which sets out the two areas in which management must be directive. Simplicity, follow the method. Chaos, follow me. Apart from that, we need to use another management methods. Persuasive management, delegative management, participative management. In this chaos zone, the example of potatoes could be as follows. I want to make the same recipe with sweet potatoes. I'm new to them. I've never cooked them. I don't know their texture, how they react to water, oil, or temperature, etc. I don't have the technical know-how and no one to help me, the team. I don't know how to do it. So I don't go for it because I don't know where to start, how many tests I'll have to run, how many different parameters I'll have to deal with. When you are working on a new project and in project management, I would suggest you to have this matrix in mind. Try to get as close as possible to the simplicity zone, while ensuring that everyone involved is as close as possible to its simplicity zone. It is therefore extremely important to return to your simplicity zone as often as possible. Let's take an example, a little anecdote. A friend of mine, Libby, was having a coffee when the head of her corporation came up to her and said, the audio system, which is the highlight of the project, hasn't been working for 2 months. Libby thought that if she had been told earlier, she would have been able to find the solution much sooner, and she thought of all the consequences of not having been told and fixed earlier. But there is no need to feel guilty. She needs to go back to her own time zero, the moment she receives the information. Then she can move forward stress-free in a simplicity zone, which what belongs to her without worrying about what is out of her control. My conclusion of this story: do not make complications where there are none, and return to simplicity by putting things in their right place. For project management, you need to keep your responsibilities, which will help you to move towards simplicity. Putting things in the right place helps you returning to simplicity. Have in mind also that over time, the complicated becomes simple thanks to experience and procedure. Even if complexity is accentuated by external factors and can take us out of our simplicity zone. The general complexity zone is accentuated by the world in which we live. Mass information, rapid and brutal changes, competitors, external decisions, etc. It's for what, in agility mindset, we are going to reduce the number of variable parameters by setting certain uncertainties. As a complicating factor, we have also imposed simplicity. Sometimes people add complication when things could be simple, because they lose sight of what's going on. For example, all the institutions that change the way they operate to make life easier for themselves are complicating life for users because there is no dialogue with them. This leads to deadlock and limited new innovative thinking. It's always the same people who benefit. We also have people who add complication to find meaning, a false sense, and those who put new procedures just because they want to exist, losing the sense of the mission. Even if our simplicity zone is extended by the fact that the complicated will become simple, the further we go, the wider our simplicity zone becomes, and paradoxically, the further we go, the quicker we are confronted with complexity or complication. Our project and lives move more towards complexity than towards simplicity. Eventually, everything that is simple will be automatized and replaced by automated production, like robots or text generators. We can also observe different postures across these zones: conservative and visionary person. The conservative person, for him or her, the complexity zone is reduced, both by the increase of their simplicity zone, and therefore of comfort, their comfort zone, and by the growing number of uncertain parameters that they are unable to manage. The conservative person quickly reaches their chaos zone, where the visionary person has an extended complexity zone and a fairly distant chaos zone. They have a vision, they have perspective where others see a discouraging and frightening chaos. Chaos zone is the fear zone. Fear is certainly the easiest emotion to project and to activate in others. Conservatives will project their fear on rally people by scaring them. This makes the difference between conservatives who are afraid of everything and visionaries who have enlarged their complexity zone and are confident. How can you be a visionary leader? Maintain a clear vision and keep faith in yourself and your vision. Let's take our potato, for example. We thought that we wanted to prepare sweet potatoes, and this preparation is now in our chaos zone. If we call on a team of sweet potato specialists, this team will, by sharing its knowledge, takes us from this chaos zone to the complex or complication zone. Then, by writing the recipe, they take us from the complication zone to the simplicity zone, ending by follow the method. This team of specialists reduces technical complexity. Before concluding, few thoughts. First one, in mathematics, the energy required to solve a system of equations with multiple unknowns increases with the square of the number of unknowns. You need as many equations as unknowns to solve a system. This is like squaring the energy needed, because the more unknowns there are, the more energy is needed to resolve the uncertainty. For one unknown by one equation, energy level is 1. For two uncertain parameters, 2 unknowns times 2 equations, energy level 4. For 5 uncertain parameters, 5 unknowns, 5 equations, energy level 25. The more uncertain parameters there are, the more equations you need, and the longer and more energy consuming it becomes. Many factors can become uncertain in our world. VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. A VUCA world equals complexity or chaos. We can also face changing an unknown parameter that turns something simple into something complex. For example, cooking at high altitude. At altitude, there is a change in parameters. Cooking potatoes could go from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, even with boiling water. You see the water boiling, but you need to cook them longer. We are in a complexification. If I'm used to cooking potatoes perfectly, and they now turn out badly, an unidentified external factor, cooking at altitude, is outside my scope. This moves me from simplicity into complexity or chaos. I find simplicity again through experience sharing or books. I can look for the information by myself in books or internet, Or someone can share with me, as I'm doing now, the information that the boiling temperature gets lower with altitude. So I need more time to get the same energy to cook my potatoes properly. By both ways, I'm fixing the problem and going back to my simplicity zone. The STACEY matrix is not just conceptual, it's concrete and dynamic. There are two ways to move out of the simplicity zone. A known or unknown technical complication, whether voluntary or not, example Garcia altitude as an unknown voluntary complication, or less agreement sharing, especially with new recruits creating new teams. Next illustration. We often first strive to solve technical problems. However, I suggest working on the political aspect of complexity before tackling the technical side. In project management, I conduct 3 training models. First one, basics of project management. Second one, advanced management. Third one, management of project stakeholders. The third module, stakeholders, is the most important and, guess what, often the least chosen. We need to return to simplicity by first addressing the human aspect, agreement, which helps us move from the complex zone to the complicated zone. Then use technical solutions to approach simplicity. For example, agile teams revise their methodology and adapt when a new team member joins. A project only works if everyone agrees. See the change management capsule if you want. Fifth point, tenders are suitable only with simple cases. We'll discuss this further in a future capsule about handling tenders in complex situations. And sixth, the piece of advice of a friend or of a specialist can lead you into both directions, complexity or simplicity. We'll discuss this further in a future capsule about our first move on the matrix in the event of advice, on what needs to be done to return to the simplicity zone. 8 points to conclude. First, stay simple. Don't overcomplicate things by accepting what it is when it happens. And stay focused on the vision thanks to a good KPI. Secondly, the world is full of external parameters which push us in chaos direction. Complicated things become simple over time by experience, education, use, and so on. We move from complex to simple by reducing both technical and human uncertainties. Agilists set 5 rituals that reduce 5 uncertain parameters. Start by managing the political before the technical. First reach an agreement, then move forward technically. 6. Chaos is acceptable when it is explained by those who see it only as complex. Management must be adapted to the zone in which the team finds itself. And 8. In complex situations, you need to concentrate on the objective to be achieved. The what, the why, and leave the how to the doers. Remember, it's not what the STACEY matrix can do for you, it's what you do with it that's important. You can also find in the description the sources, links, and studies used for this video. To continue this discussion with us, treat yourself, treat us, and subscribe. Feel free to share your experiences on the subject in comments and suggest other topics that will interest you. Feel free to book a free appointment to clear your mind. And see you next time.